Okay. Evening, everyone. My name is Sipo, and I'm a fourth year student doing my BTech in corporate communication. That's what I usually call this course. So what we'll be doing today, we'll be presenting about the disinformation and its impact on a small organization, or rather your non-profit organizations, if one would like to put it that way. Now, before we get on, I'd like my two other colleagues to introduce themselves, and then we'll get on with the business of the day.
Hi, my name is Akatlula Khadana. I'm also a fourth year student doing my advanced diploma in public relations management.
Evening, everyone. My name is Tshepo Tudi. Yeah, we're in the same class with Akatlula and Sipotolo, advanced diploma. Yeah, so we are here to present about disinformation and its effects on organizations. So stay tuned. Ariel.
Thank you for that, colleagues. So I would like to start with a question for our participants. I would like you guys to engage with us through the chat box on what you think disinformation is. So what disinformation is, that disinformation, with this definition, is the deliberate creation and spread false, inaccurate, or misleading information intended to deceive, manipulate, or cause harm, unlike misinformation. So misinformation, on the other hand, is usually shared by mistake. There are those news that are usually we usually see them, like you wouldn't expect to see those news, but you just know that there's a mistake there. On the other hand, disinformation, there's intention behind it. When someone crafts a certain news with an intention to deceive, or rather to cause a havoc, whatever, it depends. The cases are differ. So disinformation, there's intention behind it. It often undermines the trust in institution or disrupt democratic processes. And then, with that being said, there are key aspects of disinformation, which I've just named a few of them, which is the intention. The intention is used to deceive one's perspective of whatever it is that one is trying to disseminate or communicate. In the case of a small profit organization or small organizations. And then there is a malicious goal that is used to damage reputations, disrupt elections, or raw social discord. For instance, in the case of the upcoming elections, so you'd see your EFF, your DA, your ANC, and then they'll be creating those false, or rather, false promises or fake promises. And then with the intent behind that, that's what counts the most. The intention behind that. Sometimes you're gonna see on social media your disinformation, your fake news, your false news. People are trying to push sorry for that, but because people are trying to push a certain narrative, and then they'll create those fake news. There's a dissemination how these organizations communicate with their stakeholders. And what's worrying about disinformation is that those fake news, or rather fake promises, they have a tendency of spreading fast. The message, how the message is perceived or is taken, it can happen so quickly in a sense that you can tell whether it's true or not. So that's what usually happens. And the last point will be, and I've made this example, the political propaganda, creating false news or false stories, forged documents to sway voters during an election with the upcoming elections. So people will be selling us fake news, fake promises, empty promises that are accompanied by a sense of legitimacy, and they lack honesty. So there's no honesty with the disinformation. and one will have to verify whether the information that they are being sold is correct or not. So it is our duty as the citizens to verify the kind of information that they perceive. In a case of small organizations, when you see something online, like it is upon yourself you have to take it upon yourself to verify what you are seeing before you proceed with whatever that is being sold to you. And then this incorporates tiny crumbles of truth into falsehood to manipulate and confuse one's sense of what is really happening. So disinformation, it clouds one's judgment. I'd like to give the platform to my other colleagues.
Thank you so much, Sibo. Now we'll move on to how disinformation affects communities. I'd like to hand over to my colleague Sibo to take us through.
Once again, good evening, everyone. I'm here to discuss the effects of disinformation on small organizations. So, before I can mention the effects, I wanted to give some light about how it can be managed or anything. So, when information in an organization is professionally and well managed by those who are responsible, obviously, can be the PR aspects or information managers and so forth. So it increases competitive advantage. So it also contributes to missions and strategies, the attainment of missions and strategies and goals, objectives and everything. That's how information benefits you when you manage it very well. So moving on, I don't want to waste time. So my first point on how disinformation affects small organizations is that the reputation damage. So when you're talking about reputation, you're talking about how the community, the customers, every stakeholder perceives the organization. So disinformation damages the reputation of small organizations. Again, there are false rumors, false news, social media posts. They may talk negatively about the organization. So that's how the reputation gets damaged. And then moving on to the second point is that small organizations, they will face financial loss. Financial loss. So maybe you're asking how can false information lead to financial loss in organizations. So when there is disinformation, like Sipo mentioned, fake news, fake everything, and manipulation, fake information, fake everything. So how does it lead to financial loss? There are stakeholders like the investor, sponsors, customers. I mean, when they read about these fake news accusations and everything, they start to doubt what is this organization leading to, and then they start to pull out their financial support about like the customer, they never come back to your organization. sponsors are pulling away, investors are pulling away, there is this. So that's how financial loss comes by. And then another point is that this information also leads to cyber attack. Yeah, there are cyber attacks in these things. Cyber attacks are linked to scamming. So they are scamming. In relation to disinformation, there are scams, there are phishing. I don't know, phishing is emails, a lot of emails, fake emails that are intending to clickbait or anything just to scam you. So when there is disinformation, it will always lead to cyber attacking, guys. Trust me. And then the other point, moving on to the other point, it's disinformation can raise crisis on your organization. Why? Because disinformation, eh, it causes crisis, and then it will require personnel from your organization. So I want you to think about the crisis. There is this information against your organization, your small organization, and then how does it cause crisis? You will to manage crisis. You will need personnel that will form your organization. You will need personnel that will monitor and manage the crisis, which takes away time and resources from your operational activities, operational time, whatever the organization. Can you hear me?
Therefore, please continue.
Okay, yeah. I was talking about how disinformation can cause crisis on small organizations. So you are dealing with disinformation, and then as an organization, you have to deal with uh, fake information against your organization. So you have to uh, employ more personnel to deal with the crisis and use more resources and the money, which takes away from the internal operations in your organization. So internally, you will be suffering as an organization. And that's because of disinformation. That's because of the attention you are giving to the crisis you are facing caused by disinformation. And in conclusion, it also affects the performance. So disinformation can cause confusion to employees and panics. Yeah, so disinformation can also due to disinformation, uh, it can result into poor quality production and lack of morale. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Tsebo. Now we're going to go into strategies one can go into. Like, let's say, for example, they want to address any of the misinformation or manage the disinformation that has spread about the organization. So for the sake of this example, I want you to imagine a nonprofit called, let's call it Kanya, as an NGO. So it specializes in community outreach projects such as feeding schemes, soup drives, stationary drives for children in the less privileged areas of Port Elizabeth. So among many strategies to employ, a social media campaign is a very good example. So a social media campaign which consists of community radio and TV stations in the area. So like the likes of Mpuma Kapa TV, Nobela FM. So we would organize interviews with those community stations. Reason being, it would help us reach our intended audiences, whilst also bearing in mind the budget that we would be on, so we wouldn't have to exhaust the budget of the organization with organizing interviews. And some community stations will give you an interview for free, and which is why it is best that we utilize such stations. Then we're not over exerting the budget that we would need to make future projects and feeding schemes. So in addition to the interviews, these would include reels of the chairperson of Kanya speaking to the camera, beginning with a sincere apology about confusion that was caused, and also clarifying that, for example, the nonprofit, when it comes to collecting food donations for the feeding scheme in Walmer Township, the donations are requested to be made in person at the office in Newton Park, not mailed. So the township, the chairperson would conclude that once more, an apology to people who may have been scammed out of their money as a result of disinformation, so who have suffered financial losses buying food items that they thought that they needed to mail, but it was a false account spreading poor information about the organization, using the name of the organization and the feeding scheme initiative donations as a front to scam people out of their money. So she would then assure them that in-person submissions, in-person donations that they would drop off at the Newton Park would be a precautionary means to avoid issues such as disinformation from arising again. So to the next point, the first posts would include stills on Instagram, on the Meta platforms, Instagram and Facebook. So stills in the form of carousel posts. I'm sure you've seen those posts on Instagram. You'll see one photo and then you'll scroll left, you'll swipe left on your phone, and you'll see a whole kind of like a slideshow of photos. Reason we would use these type of posts is because these gain more traction than regular posts on these platforms, and thus it will connect us with more of our target audience. So the first post would be a carousel post that would describe Kanya as a non-governmental organization. So it would highlight the mission, the vision, and the objectives of the organization, which will allow the stakeholders to hold their organization accountable for whether or not they are fulfilling what they say that their mission and vision wants to fulfill. So the carousel posts would start on Friday, for example, and then will be made on Friday, 3 days after the carousel post, after the reel, excuse me. Then press releases are another means of these strategies that we would impose on social media. So the press releases would be written by our public relations department and then published on X, formerly Twitter, as well as Facebook, where the press releases will be boosted for 3 days each. Now, boosting can be a means to reach a broader audience while also, remaining in our budget of, we'd boost for around about 50 Rand per day, so 3 days for 50 Rand. And so we are keeping our budget on a tight leash so that we're not exerting all of our finances all at once. Now, X is a good platform as it deals primarily with current affairs, trending topics, as well as textile posts. So our audience that prefers to rather read the news as opposed to watch videos or scroll through carousel posts on Instagram could log into X and have a look at our press release and what our statement, what we've said on X and Facebook regarding the matter of disinformation. And also, a benefit of X is that it also bypasses media personalities such as journalists, which allow for the opportunities of for stories to be spread quickly and for users to engage instantly. Thus, in this case, our press release would spread quicker and the users would engage more instantaneously as opposed to posting on other platforms like Instagram, for example, which don't really deal with text, not in the way that X and Facebook does. The press release would then also detail upcoming events that will occur following the disinformation, while keeping in mind the very strategies that have been discussed today. Because the whole idea behind these strategies is to prevent any disinformation, to prevent any more crises from coming about as a result of disinformation. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. I would like to now just open up the chat box. Do you have any questions for any of the speakers or for all three speakers? Anything you would like to be clarified? I'll just stop sharing the screen quickly.
I think to answer your question, Lefa, I think like normally what usually happens is that within an organization, there are these like the workload is divided into what the executive is made of. So, for instance, there are your CEOs, your whatnot, until the last line of the organization. So, what usually happens is that if an information is then disseminated by your CEO, then it goes through all these other channels, your COO, your and so on. So like the information has a tendency of being distorted in that case. And then one would then assume that this is what the CEO wanted us to sell to the audience. then that's how disinformation in other cases is usually created. But all in all, can disinformation be a result of unclear communication for? Yes, exactly what I wanted to answer. What I wanted to ask you, Zusak, if what was the question once again? Like the information usually becomes distorted because there are so many channels that it has to go through, and then one perceives, or rather, the narrative changes like to what suits me. If then I saw banner, this is what you want to sell. This is what you want to sell. I can flip it and just say, this is what you wanted to sell. I'm not sure if I'm making sense or not. And then we'll take that and sell it to the public sphere. And then that's how disinformation in other cases is usually created.
Hi, Zusaka. To answer your question of what's the most common way you see unclear communication from comms team accidentally create disinformation for a possible small business, one clear way is, let's say, for example, on the company page, right? A poster was posted, like a poster regarding an upcoming event, for example, was posted on Facebook, and the details pertaining to this event were about fundraising for, let's say, it's May, so let's say for youth, we're going to June, so let's say for Youth Month, for example. Let's say we're fundraising for youths, to contribute to allowing high schools in GQ to be able to go on an excursion, on a 1-day excursion to whichever, let's say it's a museum or something for history. An unclear communication form would be like describing that fundraising for allowing for the day excursion and saying we're trying to raise money for high schoolers. A form of that would be that posting a poster that says that the event is for high schoolers on Facebook, and then next thing you know, someone in the comms department who was in charge of Instagram, for example, they go and they post something that says, in fact, that no, the fundraising is not for high schoolers, it's for kids in primary school. That's kind of an example of that, because now of disinformation, because it's now confusing now, because Facebook, you said we're doing this for high schoolers, and now on Instagram you're saying we're doing it for primary schoolers. So that's kind of a clear indication. And if that's not rectified, obviously then you as a user, you're looking at them like, I'm confused. Are you guys doing this for high schoolers or for primary school learners? Did I answer your question? I saw a question saying disinformation, is it like a lie? Yes, that also goes into the intentionality aspect that Usipo covered. Sometimes people do that maliciously. They want to spread a rumor or a narrative about an organization that isn't true, with the intention of disparaging that organization's reputation.
And to add on that, misinformation also goes with the facts. Like what I said before, like you have to get your facts right. Like you must know your story. So one would say there is like unintentionally so misinformation. That's how it occurs. Because if it happens that perhaps you get a statistics wrong, like a certain stats wrong, and then people would then be misinformed by that. So you then have to get your facts right. Unlike disinformation, there is an intention behind that. You wanted people to perceive a certain narrative the way you wanted them to. So that's the difference. There is an intention, then there isn't an intention.
So it's like you asked how can small business protect themselves in the case of being short-staffed and with the role. So a lot of small business have a short staff, and their role intercepts, and sometimes comms is done by someone who's not in that specialty. The way that they can stop themselves is, I think it's really dependent on the stage of looking at the organization and the stage that it's at. And usually, I know that usually happens is they short staff because organizations such as these start with 1 to 3 people, for example. But as the organization grows and more volunteers become involved, then you're eventually asked to look for volunteers that might have this kind of skill. And then the volunteers who specialize in social media and the comms then become the new department of comms for that organization. So it'll start off with 3 people, but as it grows and as more volunteers come in, then they can start delegating those tasks. And like, no, this is the comms department, this is the PR department, I'm the PR and the comms department, unite and they collaborate. But usually that's in the later stages when the organization now is growing. Is that clear? Do you understand?
Yes. Also to add on that,
Yes, Sebo?
I'm having internet problems. To also add on what you said, yes, can't do it.
It seemed like Usep was having internet issues. But with that said,
Okay, no, I can hear you. I was saying, and yeah, to add on what Aka was saying with how small organizations can take preventative measures on this kind of crisis, disinformation and threats. I was gonna say, and also the communication departments, they must also periodically, they must also try to maintain and renew those information. They have to maintain and protect organizational information, and also remind the employees not to leak or make organizational information accessible to the people outside the organizations. So this can happen through workshops or maybe the meetings or anything, just to remind your employees that no, with our organizational information, you have to go this limit and this limit. Don't give to your child or your friend out there. So that's how sometimes you protect your organization and ensure that your information is always protected, because internet is always the main source of information. So if people they get hold of your organization information, anything can happen to you. So in conclusion, that was all.
All right. If there aren't any more questions, we'd like to, on behalf of the team, we'd like to thank you very much for joining us for this session. We apologize for all the technical difficulties and delay. We really appreciate you taking your time and being part of this presentation with us. Yeah, you must enjoy your evening, the rest of your evening, and
your food. Yes.
yes, have a wonderful evening, and we will see you guys in future webinars if possible.